Hey guys, Spencer from the editing room here. I just wanted to let you guys know ahead of time that we had some possible issues with the audio from this episode. I haven't started editing it yet as of right now, so I'm not entirely sure. But usually when I edit these episodes, I have multiple tracks of audio. I have Gabe's separate audio and I have my separate audio, and I'm able to adjust the volume levels on each of them to make for a better just audio experience all around. But with this one, when we recorded the episode, it basically came out in one audio track. So I can't really mess with that at all. It just kind of is the volume that it is for the most part. So I'm sorry if that ends up being a bad audio quality, but I think overall it should be fine. Anyways, I just wanted to apologize for that. Hopefully, you guys enjoy this episode. It was a ton of fun for us. So, yeah, enjoy and happy Halloween. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Fantasy Files podcast, where we talk about our favorite fantasy series and topics. We are your co hosts, Spencer and Gabe. And today we are doing our spooky season episode, our kind of Halloween episode. And I guess what my plan is for this episode is for Gabe and I to give you horror book recommendations, but specifically ones that actually scared us. Because I think it's really common in horror, and we've seen this over the past couple of years of doing the podcast, where you hear so much hype about a book and everyone's like, oh yeah, this actually scared me, and it's really not scary. And I know that that's super subjective. I know that everybody has different things that scare them. Something that scares one person may not even be close to scaring someone else. But I feel like there are some books that are unanimously scary, and I think we found at least a couple of them. I think so. So yeah, we're going to talk about those. I have some recommendations that did not make it onto our final list that I'll kind of go through briefly as honorable mentions as well, in case you're interested. But we're mostly going to be diving into maybe two or three that actually gave us a little bit of a fright. If you'd like to reach out to us, you can do so on Twitter or Discord or Patreon, which are all linked down in the description. Over on Patreon, I think our tiers start at $3 and you get access to a bunch of exclusive content and downloadable bookmarks and whatnot. So if that interests you, then check that out. You can also help us out here on YouTube by liking and subscribing. That always gets us seen a little bit more by the algorithm and helps bring in new people like you. So without further ado, what should we start with? Should we start with honorable mentions and work our way up to our two favorites?
I think that's what we should do. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
So I have some honorable mentions, and if you listen to a few minutes of any of these, just pop in,
Yep.
Gabe, and let me know. I started spooky season with Ghost Written by Ronald Malfi. And this wasn't scary. We'll work up to the two that were actually scary.
Yeah.
But they were horror stories, and they were 5 short stories. So they're individual characters. You're with them for an hour and a half in the audiobook, something like that. You get told a cool spooky short story, and then that's it, and it goes on to the next one. And I really liked this. I had never really thought about reading a horror anthology. And because they're so bite-sized, you don't really have to pay attention to a big stretching story.
Yep.
Not that horror books are really that long in the first place, but the short stories were even more compact and kind of
more
packed a punch.
thrilling. Yeah.
And so yeah, it was really fun. All of the short stories in this one relate to essentially cursed or magical books. And so in each of the short stories, there's some sort of aspect of there being a book that is causing trouble in this story.
Death Note.
So yeah, Death Note, exactly. Yeah. So like one of them is this lady who is a publicist, and she's got this author who is supposed to turn in a script or a book to her, and she can't get a hold of him, and he's out at the cabin, and he's known for being like a bit of a drug addict.
Hmm.
And so she's like, well, maybe he's on a bender or
Yeah.
something. And so she goes out to this cabin, and the book that he's writing is based on another book. And so, or no, he's making a movie script. That's what it is. So he's got the original book and he's making a movie script from it. So she goes out to this cabin where he supposedly is, and he has gone like completely cuckoo.
Hmm.
And he's like outside, like in his boxers, and he's just like, you don't want to go in there. Like, don't go inside. Don't go inside. She's like, what is going on? And so finally, she like tricks him into getting into her car, and basically he tells her like, yeah, no, like the movie script is completed, but it's inside in a box, and there's like a demon in there, and you don't want to go in there.
Huh.
And she's like, you're crazy.
You're off your rocker.
Yeah, she's like, you've been doing cocaine, all this stuff.
Yeah.
So she takes him back home and then drives back out to the cabin. And it was kind of like Pandora's box kind of thing. Like the book and the manuscript were literally in a box of plywood that he built to like contain it.
Yep.
And once she opened it, it just unleashed hell.
Whoa.
And like she basically took this book with her, and she took the manuscript, but every day another page of the manuscript would disappear. And so and none of this is spoiler. This all happens like right at the beginning. I know it probably seems like I spoiled a bunch of stuff. I really didn't. But anyway, so she's basically trying to figure out what's going on with this thing, and it's doing, the book is eating things. Yeah, it gets a little spooky. And then there's another story that I really liked. Probably my favorite one was about these two brothers that are kind of they're kind of like couriers for the mob.
Oh,
And
interesting.
so like there's like crime bosses that have them,
Run.
run stuff in their trunk,
Yep.
and they like take it to wherever. And so they are given a book in a briefcase, and they're given like really specific instructions with this book. They're like, you can't open the briefcase, you can't read the book, do not touch the book, like don't, like just put it in your trunk, take it to where it needs to go. Oh, and you have to follow this very specific route. And so they like draw on a map. They're like, that's not the quickest way to get there. They're like, no, you have to do it this way. They were very specific about this.
Yeah.
They're like, okay. And so as they're following this route, they're noticing that the areas around them are starting to change in really odd ways. And like they find just like an abandoned gas station where the food in the gas station is no like brands that they recognize. Like
Whoa.
it's some like random brands that no one's ever heard of.
Yep.
And when they eat the food, it tastes like dust, and they're just like, what is going on with this? And so that one was really good. That was
that sounds trippy.
definitely my favorite.
Yep.
So highly recommend Ghost, written by Ronald Malfi. So far he has not missed, as far as I can tell. I'm currently reading The Narrows by Ronald Malfi. And this one, it's not spooky, and you can definitely tell that it's one of his earlier writings, but I'm still enjoying it. Like it's so hard to explain because it's not a thrill ride. I'm not like, oh, I can't wait to see what happens next. But the characters in the story are so well done that I'm enjoying just kind of seeing them live life and figure out the mystery of what's going on.
That's cool. Yeah, that's one that I started. I didn't get very far, but I got enough to understand,
Right. Yeah.
where they're at.
I would not fault anyone for DNFing it. It
Yeah.
is definitely a very slow read. I think basically what it amounts to is it's a very small town out in the middle of nowhere, like outside of like cell phone range and all sorts of stuff. And basically kids are going missing. There's various kids throughout the town that, and one of the police officer, the sheriff, he found a kid in the river that was like all white and he was like bald. He's like, what the hell is this kid? And he took him to the morgue. And then people reported seeing like little white shapes running around, like little like humanoid people that are just completely albino running around. And as far as I am in the story, I still haven't figured out what the mystery is.
Gotcha.
But it's getting pretty good the closer I get to the end. And I think the one, because there's multiple POVs, and I think the one that hooked me the most is this lady who married her high school sweetheart and is having an affair on him. And you're watching her try to like juggle these two things, like this guy that she's having an affair with like keeps coming by and trying to like contact her.
Oh yeah,
she's
okay.
Like,
see, I remember
you
that.
remember that?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Yep.
And she's like, you cannot be here, like
Yeah.
you cannot contact me, like he cannot find out. And so, not that I support cheating or anything, but it is entertaining to like see this all play out and see what she's gonna do with the situation.
Yeah.
And so yeah, that's been a character that I've been really interested in, especially because Ronald Malfi has written her really well to where you're like, even though she's having this affair, you're still sympathetic to her in a way where it's like she feels like trapped in this marriage and she doesn't know what to do. Again, that doesn't excuse cheating, but it makes for an interesting story. And so yeah, I've been enjoying it. I'll probably wrap it up tomorrow. I think I have another like hour or two on it.
Sweet.
And yeah, Ronald Malfi, good dude.
Hell yeah.
So then there's this other one called Maeve Fly, and people were saying in the reviews that it was like really scary and stuff. It is not at all. It's still a good book. It's just not like I wouldn't even call it a horror book. It's basically like the show Dexter, where he's like a serial killer that is able to like be fairly normal and live a normal life. That's basically what this is, except it's a girl.
He's a functional serial killer.
Functional serial killer, yeah. And yeah, it's really funny. I would definitely recommend it for the humor alone, just because the main character is like so far on one end of the spectrum as far as like cynical and just like mean spirited, and like it's just like funny, the things that she's able to come up with. And she's like super addicted to sex, and so she's like horny all the time. And I don't know, it's just funny. It's just entertaining being in her head. And she occasionally kills people. So again, not scary, but it's probably worth a listen if you just want something weird and kind of out there. Sure. The last one, or no, sorry, I have two more. Or no, I'm not going to talk about that one. That one was stupid. Okay.
Which one was it?
The Grand Hotel.
Oh, okay.
I didn't like that
Sounds
one at
stupid.
all. Yeah, it was dumb. It was supposed to be. It was supposed to be like this haunted hotel where, like these tourists show up because they hear that it's like this super spooky and haunted hotel, and they want to experience it. And the guy at the desk is supposed to be like, I think he's supposed to be like Satan or something, or like some sort of demon or whatnot, but he's in like human form. And so it's kind of told from his perspective, and he's like talking about these guys coming in like they're like thrill seeking. He's like, I'll show them a thrill, like they'll like most people don't leave this hotel. And you'd think that would be an interesting premise. It sounds kind of interesting. However, when he takes them on this tour, he's taking them room by room by room to all of these like very weird people that live there. And they essentially like, they'll tell the tourists a story or something, or they'll tell them like about their life. And it's never like, it's never scary, but it also just doesn't like, it's like, okay, well, like, aren't you supposed to be like a ghost, or
demon?
yeah, like, aren't you supposed to be like something scary? But the story that you told feels like it doesn't really have anything to do with why you're here.
Huh.
And so, yeah, I gave up on it. I was
Yeah.
just like,
It's a
okay,
pass.
yeah, hard pass. The one that now, when I said there might be 3 books that were actually scary,
Mm-hmm.
this one is scary, but I had to DNF it because it was too much.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Damn.
It's not that it was necessarily too scary, although it was scary. I was definitely tripped out. This guy, okay, so sorry, the book is called The Black Farm. And basically what this is it's a lot of body horror. It is a lot of body horror, like a
Hmm.
lot.
Okay.
And so,
This is the one you texted me about and asked you, hey, are you into body horror?
yeah,
Like,
it was
not. I mean,
yeah,
I can
exactly.
stand it, but it's not my
Right.
favorite.
You're like, I'd rather not. And that was actually before I started this book, because
Oh.
I read the premise. I'm like, oh, that sounds interesting. And everybody in the reviews was like, oh yeah, it's like super gory and whatnot. And I'm like, I don't mind gory. Like, I play bloody video games.
Yeah. Oh
Like,
yeah.
how bad could it be? No, dude, this book. So it starts out. I'm not even sure if I can say some of these words on YouTube. So this guy, this guy and his wife have had a miscarriage, and she is so upset that they decide to end it. And so they do. And what happens is essentially they wake up in purgatory.
Oh.
And what happens when they wake up in purgatory, though, and they're separated, they're like on completely different ends of the map as far as like purgatory goes.
Mm-hmm.
So, how it's explained is that purgatory is basically hell, because when God created purgatory, he left this one being in charge, and this being wanted to create his own world in purgatory, but he wasn't able to do it very well because he wasn't God.
Yeah.
And so he created basically a hellscape. Everything he tried to create just kind of like got twisted and
Mm-hmm.
thrown back on him. And so there's like a giant, like acres and acres, like this giant field of like syringes that are just like, and like in order to get to like a very important part of the map, you have to like go through this giant field of
Whoa.
syringes
Whoa.
that are just all like just like
Yeah.
poking up and stuff. um and so there's stuff like that. And I think the thing that finally got me, because at first he was trying to find his wife. He's given this option. He's like, you can either be judged, and they will either send you back to the real world and give you a second chance, or they'll send you to hell.
Mm.
Now you can go back to the real world, have a second chance, and then potentially go to heaven, or like you're going even further down.
Yeah.
And he's like, oh man, like I don't really want to take that risk, but also I got to find my wife. And the guy at the beginning tells him, well, it's possible that your wife chose to like be judged, and so
Mm.
you don't know.
Yeah.
And so basically throughout the part that I got to, I got like a quarter of the way through the book. And the part that I got to, he was like trying to find his wife, and he runs into this other lady who's like, yeah, like we're in this together. Like we're gonna like, we're gonna try to get to like a safe space, because
Mm-hmm.
there's like pockets of survivors in this hellscape. And
Oh.
there's like giant like like ogre type demon things that are walking around that will like torture people and like hurt them and
Whoa.
all sorts of stuff. There's like birds of prey. There's
Yeah.
all sorts of demons like running around all over the place. So there's like survivors that try to make like little encampments and like hide from these things. But I got to a point where uh by the time I got to a quarter of the way through the book, multiple people had been R-worded.
Mm.
Is that,
Yep. Yep.
and like, and it was like like graphically and brutally so.
Oof.
And also there was like limbs being removed slowly and torturously and completely. And I was just like, by the time I got to the point where the main character's arms had been cut off, I was just like, I don't think I can do this anymore. I
Yeah.
just don't think I can do like any more of this.
Yeah.
And I even noticed that day, like while I was listening to it, I finally decided to shut off the book, and I was just in a bad mood the
Just
rest
feel
of the
like just
day.
gross. You
I
just
just felt,
felt
I just felt like,
disgusted with yourself. You're like,
uh,
why was I listening to that?
oh, dude, it was worse than like Night Angel Nemesis.
Yeah. Yeah.
I was like, I don't feel good about anything that I just
Yeah.
read. And
Yeah.
I really like kind of wish that I hadn't
Yep.
read it at
Yep.
all. So yeah, that was an interesting
That's
experience. And
gnarly. Yeah.
I learned that like I probably don't like body horror because
Mm-hmm.
I went into it thinking, oh yeah, I can do that. I can totally handle that. Matter of fact, I almost made fun of you for being like, no, I don't want to do that. And so now I'm like, yeah, okay, I probably don't want to do that either.
uh,
so so yeah, that was my experience with that. But I will say to our audience, if you are someone that can handle that, I think the book was good. It was well written, and I was interested
and
very
like the
much.
plot, the story, and stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I was definitely like if I knew for a fact that the point that I got to was like the worst that is the
You would have
worst that
kept
it
going.
gets, like I would have kept going
Yeah.
just to find out what happens because it was really, really interesting. So yeah, if you guys want to check that out, it's called The Black Farm. It's by Elias Witherow. So yeah, have fun with that. So yeah, we're gonna go into our top two. These books legitimately scared us. I think I'm hoping they did. They definitely scared me. They scared the shit out of me.
One scared me much more than the other.
Okay, do
Yeah.
you want to? Are you talking about Splendor of Fear?
Yes. No, no.
Okay.
So
Oh, Stolen Tongue scared you
Stolen
more.
Tongue scared me a lot more than Splendor of Fear. And
Okay, wait.
it's
If Stolen Tongues was the highlight, because it is for me as well, we should save it till the end.
okay, then let's talk about Splendor of Fear.
Yeah, okay, so I'll pass it over to you for a second. What did you think of Splendor of Fear? And I can do like a description or whatever too. I'm just curious
Yeah, for
what
sure.
your general thoughts are.
So I really did enjoy the book a
Mm,
lot. I love the plot. I love the idea of, kind of witch trials, stuff like that that happened way back in the day, this and that coming back. I liked the characters, but there wasn't a lot in there that like really like made me feel
mm,
much, I guess.
sure.
Like the concept was scary,
Yeah.
but I'm like, there's just some running through the woods, there's kind of a
Interesting.
weird
Okay.
ghost, stuff like that.
Yeah.
Uh so for our Halloween episode, the episode that's supposed to be what we're scared of, it didn't do like a ton for me, but
Sure.
I loved the book though itself.
Yeah.
Like I really liked the story, and there's some stuff that happens with some like not well, maybe I shouldn't say that if we're not doing spoilers, but there's a
Sure.
lot of cool stuff that happens in it
Yeah.
that I really thoroughly enjoyed. It just wasn't very high on my scare meter.
Yeah, that's totally fair. I think that it scared me because and I'll do a description in a second,
Mm,
but it scared me because I've been stuck in the woods before
yeah.
without a light source, and like literally been like lost as far as like I don't know which way is north, I don't know how
Ooh,
to
yeah,
get
that's
out.
scary.
And I just had to like keep going until I came
Yeah.
out somewhere. And it is legitimately like I would not wish it on my worst enemy.
Dude, I
Like
couldn't imagine. I could not
it
imagine being stuck in the woods with no lights and not knowing where I am. I would curl up into a ball and just fucking wait until the sun came up. Seriously, that's
yeah.
yeah, no way.
Yeah, it is terrifying, especially because there's so many like little animals that are out
Oh,
there
it's
that
all
you
sorts of
don't.
sounds, dude. Trees creaking and I
Yeah.
couldn't even imagine, dude.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
in the daylight you see a squirrel, or
Hmm.
even if you hear it, you don't really think much about it. But when you're in the dark and you hear and
Yeah.
just like little things like
Yeah.
that,
Yeah.
there is something that there is
That's
something that
primal fear,
nighttime
dude.
does. Yeah, that's primal.
Yep.
There is like a something deep inside
Mm-hmm.
us that makes that
Yep.
terrifying. And I think that's what this book does so well.
Yeah.
What this book is about essentially is a so you have I forget what the two characters' names are. You have a girlfriend and a boyfriend,
Yeah.
and they are very serious. They've been dating for a few years, but they're not married. And for the most part, she's fine with that. She like doesn't really care. And I think that that was something that it's interesting because I really liked this book, but I didn't like I. Hmm, I liked how the characters were written, and I think they were written well, and I liked them for that.
Mm-hmm.
But as far as like their personalities, I'm
Yeah.
like, I would not like to hang out with either of these people.
I would agree. I would
They,
agree for
they
sure.
just seem like two shitty people.
Yep.
But yeah, so they're dating, and she's like, he's got to be close to asking me if I want to get married and whatnot. And out of nowhere, he proposes, not proposes,
Plans.
he plans this camping trip. And
Yep.
she's very much a city
Yeah. So
girl.
why the fuck would I want to go camping, dude?
Yeah, she's like, that is the stupidest thing you've ever said.
Yeah.
And even I was thinking that. I was like,
Yeah.
dude, if you're gonna propose to
You could do
someone
so
and
much better than in a
yeah,
fucking tent.
right. And
Yeah.
I'm like, man, and at the beginning we don't know for sure that he's going to propose, but we're assuming that that's the
Mm.
plan. And it's like, man, if you were going to do that, wouldn't you want to take her to like her favorite place?
Yeah.
Like, why would you want to take her to your favorite place to
Yeah.
propose to her?
Yeah.
That's the most like,
That's pretty narcissistic right there, dude.
yeah, dude. I
Like
was
I'm
just
gonna
like,
make myself feel great about this.
yeah, I was just like, what a fucking douchebag.
Yeah.
But but yeah, so he takes her on this camping trip. She agrees because she's like, "Oh, I'm going to get proposed to." And on the way out, they're kind of like researching this. It's like a state park,
Yep.
and they're researching it, and they realize that there were witch trials held there and like witch hunts and stuff like that. And wouldn't you know it, it's actually 200 years ago to the day
Yep.
that the like main like witch died or was burned at the stake
Yep.
or
Was
whatever.
burned. Yeah.
So it's like, gee, I wonder what's going to happen this weekend.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the closer, and that was kind of like, I honestly didn't mind that
I
so
didn't
much. Like
either. Yeah.
it could definitely be like a little eye rolly, like, oh, of course it's the 200th year of whatever. But it's plot convenience, and
Yep.
I'm fine with it for the
Yeah. And
most
I
part.
think what they did with it, kind of
Yeah,
it didn't feel like other books of the same sort in that sense. They
right.
did some unique things with that 200-year anniversary.
Right. Yeah,
Yeah.
there was some good like twists and turns and the whys and the hows
Mm-hmm.
of how it all kind of worked was really well done. Um but yeah, essentially like the closer they get to their camping site, they're realizing that the whole place is abandoned, and apparently on this weekend every single year the whole place is cleared out. And so even the ranger tells them
Like,
like, you're on your own. Like,
yeah, they even offer like, hey, I'm gonna give you a refund. You should rethink your
right.
thing. He's like, no, I already paid for it. I got the campsite. And
Yeah.
Ranger's like, all right, well, we won't be up there, so there's nobody to help you out.
Yeah, which is so dumb on their part. It's like it's just classic horror movie,
Yep,
like, we'll be fine.
yep,
I'm just like, God, you guys, like if
yeah. I would have been like, sure,
everybody,
refund, totally. Let's go back next weekend.
yeah,
You
like
know, like,
if everybody abandons this place this
yeah,
specific time of year, then
yep.
like even if it's not something like extremely supernatural or anything, there's a reason.
Oh, for
Like
sure.
just leave, like
Yep.
just go. You know what I mean?
Don't be that guy, dude.
Don't be that guy. Um, so yeah, that's kind of the basic premise. They get to the campsite, and essentially as soon as they get there, weird stuff starts happening.
Yep.
Like her boyfriend decides to like run ahead of her
Hmm.
to like go to the campsite because there's like there's like a trail that like loops around,
Yeah, they have
but
to hike. It's like a 2 mile hike right up to the from the Jeep or something.
yeah,
Yeah,
and there's like a road, but he decides like, oh, let's go through the
cut.
brush or
Yeah,
whatever.
yeah,
And so he like hikes up there and he's like, I'll race you there. And she's like, which is another like,
yeah.
I
Like,
was like,
what did you think was gonna happen, dude?
this fucking guy, like,
Yeah, yeah.
I don't know, Gabe, I couldn't ever imagine you and your fiance going camping and you just being like, race me to the campsite and
Nope.
just leaving her behind in the
Yeah,
woods.
I would
Like,
certainly not do that ever.
I was
That's
like, this
yeah.
fucking guy.
Yep.
So, yeah, he just like irritated the hell out of me. And to be honest, the girlfriend wasn't much better because she was super like,
Oh yeah.
I don't know, just kind of like stuck up and
She's
like,
kind of valley girl, you know?
yeah,
Yeah.
completely, yeah. But anyway, so she like goes chasing after him, and as soon as she like kind of gets into the woods, everything like distorts a little bit, and she's like, I've passed the same tree multiple
Yep.
times, and like I'm calling out to him, but he can't hear me, even though he should be right
Right
there.
there, yeah.
And so I thought stuff like that was really
Yep.
interesting, and that's how the book spooked me, is just
Mm-hmm.
playing with these ideas of like, what would you
Sensory
do?
distortion kind of that
Yes,
stuff. Yeah.
sensory distortion. That's a
Yeah.
perfect phrase for it. Um, and even later, we'll get into a couple spoilers
Mm-hmm.
later on. I won't do it here, but there are some things later that happen where it's like it really plays with that. Like it plays with the reader's perception of what is real and what is not, because the way it is described at first, you as the reader have no reason to believe that this isn't real.
Yeah.
And then when it kind of flips the script on you, it throws you for a
Yep.
loop and you're like, oh shit, I
Yep.
didn't see that coming.
Totally.
Um,
Totally.
and so yeah, I can't wait to talk about that specifically
Yeah.
in the spoiler section a little bit here. But yeah, I had a great time with the book. I think that the ending could have used maybe a little bit better of a twist or something. But I think for the most part, I was happy with it, and
Yep.
I had a really really good time.
Totally. I would
And
agree.
also for these books, currently I am working out on a job site that is in the middle of nowhere, and it's like a little cabin.
Yeah.
It's like literally a little
Mm-hmm.
tiny cabin way up on like a
Yep.
cliffside, and it's just middle of nowhere,
Yep.
straight up.
30 minutes down a gravel driveway.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
And so listening to this, and especially Stolen Tongues, had me
Oh yeah.
really, really creeped out,
Yeah.
especially because we're getting into winter
Yep.
and the sun is going down sooner.
Mm-hmm.
So by the time I get off work, it is
Almost
essentially
dark.
dark.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
So it's getting pretty spooky. Um, but yeah, anything else about Splendor of Fear? And this is by Ambrose Ibsen, by the way. That's the author. I probably
Yep.
should have said that at the beginning, but
It's all good. You got it
yeah,
covered. No, probably not anything. I'll have some stuff when we get into spoiler or partial
sure.
spoilers that we do, but like I said, I agree. I don't want anybody to think that I didn't like it, because I did thoroughly enjoy it. It just didn't like frighten or terrify me, I guess, or scare me.
Mm,
Uh, but it's a great book. Highly recommend it.
yeah. I think that as far as the scare factor for me, I think most of it had to do with like the sensory
Yep.
deprivation.
And that's, dude,
Um,
that shit was trippy. It was
yeah,
weird. And
yeah,
it
it
weird to like conceptualize in your head.
for
So
sure, yeah.
yeah.
And yeah, I think that I've read so many books that try to do that, like The
Mm,
Haunting in Hill House,
yep.
the Haunting of Hill House. We read that for our first Halloween episode,
Mhm.
and that book tried to play with the idea where it's like the the dimensions of the inside of the house don't match the outside, and there's
Yep.
like walls that are like changing and stuff. And I just, maybe it's just because it's like a an older book, I was just like, it's just not like super scary, it's just
Yeah.
not done in a
It's not up to
fast enough
snuff.
pace. Yeah, it was, I don't know, there was just something about that that didn't scare me.
Yeah.
But this book tried to do a really similar thing, and I think it really succeeded. And it honestly like tripped me out. Like there
Yeah.
was nights where I was listening to it just in my room here
Hmm.
and with both of these books, and I had to like get up and like turn on a
A
light,
light,
or
yeah.
there
You're
would
like,
be,
oh, yep,
yeah, like
yep.
something just doesn't feel,
Get the
especially,
heebie-jeebies.
yeah, especially once the witch got involved and we
Yeah.
started seeing her more.
Hmm.
I was like, oh, I just don't like feel comfortable in my house. It just like creeped me out.
Yep.
So yeah, anyway, fully recommend The Splendor of Fear by Ambrose Ibsen. Another one I tried by him. Sorry, I should have done this in the last part.
You're good.
But Asylum. He wrote a book called Asylum, and I thought it was fine. It was essentially like some college kids go to an asylum to find ghosts because they're
Kind of
like,
like an abandoned asylum, like an old one. Yeah.
yeah, like a creepy asylum.
Hmm.
And the story was interesting, but it was not scary in
Yeah.
the least. Like it
Yeah.
was not like at all scary. Um, but I'm so conflicted on it because I really liked the characters
Hmm.
and it's a series.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, I might try the second one.
Well,
I
yeah,
don't know.
just dude, it
Yeah,
doesn't, set aside the scariness.
sure.
Cause I, yeah, that's exactly how I felt about Splendor of Fear. Cause I had to like, cause
Okay.
going into it, like we were reading for Halloween, right? We were trying to get
Right.
scared, but
Yeah.
I was like, okay, this isn't scaring me, but the story is so good,
Yeah.
uh, and kind of mind bendy. So I was like, fuck it, dude, this is good.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so yeah, I might check out the sequel to Asylum at some point. It was the characters, and I think it was mostly the characters for me. I wouldn't even say like the story was good, but it wasn't as good as like Splendor of Fear.
Yeah.
But like the characters themselves and how they interacted with each other, I that was like a major selling point
Yeah.
for the book. So yeah, I might check out that sequel.
Hell yeah.
So let's talk spoiler free Stolen
Oh
Tongues.
yeah.
I'll hit it with the description
Yep.
first and get
Yep.
that out of the way.
Cool.
So basically, we're following this guy Felix, and I don't think we ever go outside of his POV. I think we're
Mm-mm.
just following
Yep.
Felix, and essentially, he is married to or going to marry.
So yeah, when the book starts, it's his girlfriend, but then quickly after it goes to them married.
Okay, so they're
Yeah.
married. Okay.
Yep.
So they decide to go on a bit of a vacation and they go to the cabin that you can actually see behind Gabe
Hmm.
there. Um, and essentially, they go on a kind of mini retreat, a vacation to this cabin out up in the mountains. And
It's
it's
the wife's
her.
the
Well,
wife's
yeah,
family's cabin. Yep.
right, correct. And they're like, man, this is going to be such a good time. And just like all good horror movies,
Yeah.
dude, I strongly believe like this book needs to be made into a
Oh,
movie. I
totally,
think
dude. Absolutely.
like the pacing of this book and everything is perfect for a
It'd be
movie.
a
And like
hit,
the
dude.
visuals, oh my god, it's so good.
It'd be a huge movie.
Yeah, well, we'll go into that in a second. But
Yeah.
the um the like all good horror movies, everything starts out very pleasant.
Hmm.
They get to this cabin and he's like, "Oh, there's a Super Nintendo here." He's like playing the Super Nintendo and they're like making dinner together and having a good time and they're like, "Oh, should we go on like a hike tomorrow and all this stuff."
Yep.
And I don't know, just having like a, normal
Yep.
cabin retreat shit. Sure enough, I can't remember if it was the first night that they're there, but at least by the second night there is some weird shit starting to happen. Apparently, his wife has a tendency to sleepwalk already.
Yep.
And so she's already susceptible to kind of getting up in the middle of the night and walking around in
Talking
odd
to
ways.
herself,
Talking.
mumbling, stuff like that.
I think it starts out with just her mumbling to something and he can't quite hear it yet. But then as time progresses, he starts to hear the voices that she's talking
Hmm.
to in her sleep. And man, it gets so creepy. It gets to the point where like she is essentially possessed. It's kind of a possession story. And I'm trying really, really hard not to spoil anything
Yeah.
because I think there's so many good twists and turns that you should
Yeah.
absolutely experience for yourself. But essentially, she gets to the point where this thing can enter her at night and have a limited control of her.
While
And
only while she's unconscious, like while she's
yeah,
in a dream state. Yeah.
right. Yeah. And man, there are just like some creepy moments where like the way she like moves her body, or like she'll stand up on her tiptoes
Mm-hmm.
and like stand like board still and just like walk around on her tiptoes, and then she'll like crane her neck and
Yep.
like smile at him. And oh god, dude,
Dude.
there's
Yeah.
so many moments that just had me like visualizing it so much. And I'm just like, oh my god. So what ends up happening is, and again, I'm not going into spoilers, but what needs to happen is they are on Native American land, and so they need to find somebody because they've gathered enough evidence to convince them that this is something supernatural and it
Yep.
has something to do with like possibly like native history or
Mm-hmm.
native legends or
Yep.
something like that. And so they go seeking out native people to help them with their issue. And it the the book is longer than I thought it would be at first.
Yeah.
This is a problem that does not go away anytime soon from the time it
No.
starts.
No.
It is
Yeah.
like a persistent thing. And I think the thing that I loved most about this book is just when you think, oh, maybe that fixed it,
Yes,
there's
dude.
another
Yes.
little twist.
Yep.
So that's the basic premise, guys. Let's just talk about this book, man. Obviously, no spoilers yet,
Okay,
but
no spoilers yet. I'll do my best.
yeah,
I wanna talk spoilers so bad, dude.
I know, me too. I know. So yeah, just what'd you think? What'd you love about this book? Because
Yeah.
I
I was
this is
so thoroughly impressed with because you texted me what 3 days ago, 2 days ago, and said, "All right, I've read these other books, they haven't really panned out, so just start reading this one. It's been good. I'm a little ways through it." And I was like, "Okay, cool." Next day at work, I was pretty busy, so I only had like maybe an hour or two to listen, and I put it on and I'm working and I'm just like, okay, I'm gonna like this. Like I'm gonna like
yeah,
this a
that's
lot.
the same feeling I got right
Yep.
from the beginning.
And so I kept going and I have been super busy the last couple days and just today I polished off the last like probably maybe an hour and a half,
Mhm.
the very end of it. And I
Yeah.
was like laying in bed with the lights off, just
Oh
like
my
listening in
god.
my ear.
Oh
And I was just
god.
like cradling myself and just like, oh my
Woo!
God, I fucking love this book so much. But it was scary, I was
It's
like
scary.
shivering.
Yeah.
So I really I love the characters so much. And I'm always really into the Native American stuff,
Same. Yeah.
spirits, stuff like that has always been uber intriguing to me. So I really liked that that's what it was. And yeah, man, I was just really impressed. And like you said, there's times where you think maybe they've figured it out
Yeah.
and this might be it.
Yeah.
No, it's not.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like it, and it continues, and you're just like, fuck. But you're
Yeah.
also like, oh my God, what's gonna happen? So
Yeah.
yeah, I was thoroughly impressed. Dude, I'm so impressed that this right now is probably like one of my favorite books I've read. Like in
I'm
in a while. Like,
yeah,
yeah.
I'm right there with
Yep.
you. I was just about to say that
Yeah.
that it might be on my top 5 for
Yeah,
the
for
year.
sure on my top 5. Totally.
Yeah. It was it was so good. I had seen this I'd seen this book talked about in like podcasts and YouTube videos and stuff, and it had kind of been on my list for a while, but and I think it was on my list for last year. I think it was either going to be this or a couple other things or
Mm-hmm.
Salem's Lot, and we ended
Yeah.
up going with Salem's
Yep.
Lot. And I'm so glad that we did this one
Me too.
this year
Yeah, me
because
too.
I just loved every second of it. There wasn't a single there wasn't really a single wasted scene. Like a
No.
lot of times every night it was a similar thing happening, but
But
I
it
always felt like it was doing something slightly
Yes,
different that kept
yes,
me
it
intrigued.
changed. That's exactly the way I felt too. Because we know like it happens in dreams, right? You sleep at
Hmm.
night, you have dreams, but every night there's a different angle that was coming that you had to
Yes.
figure out and you had to think about, which is really cool.
100%. Yeah, man, I loved all the different ways that this thing would try to like get inside the cabin
Mm-hmm.
cuz essentially like you kind of know from the beginning that there is at least a physical thing. You
Yep.
don't know what it is,
How it
but
works.
yeah,
Yeah.
but there is something that is outside their cabin that is like pacing their cabin
Yep.
and causing all this to happen.
Yeah.
And so I just love like just the different things. Like there's a certain point where she's like she's like standing at the window like in her like up on her toes like in her like exorcist like mode, and she's like looking out the window, and whatever it is like way out there, and it's just like looking back,
Mm-hmm.
and it's just like,
Yeah.
oh man. And then there's times where like he's at the cabin alone and it's still like trying to do stuff. Oh god,
Dude, so
it's
good.
so good. Um but yeah, we like, don't worry guys, we haven't even come close to spoiling anything. There's a
Nope.
lot of really cool things that happen in the second half of this book. The first half is mostly,
Just kind of starting to like figure out what is really happening.
yeah, yeah, exactly. You're watching things happen to them that you don't really have any
Yep.
explanation for. You're finding things like the dream catcher that you can
Yep.
see behind Gabe there. And that's like kind of exactly how I pictured it
Oh,
too.
totally. Me too. That's why when
Um,
I found this, I was like, that's it. That's
that's
it.
perfect. Yeah. I loved the dream catcher. There was
Yeah.
so many like just trippy scenes with
Oh,
that.
man.
Um, but yeah, you're kind of watching just things happen to this couple with no real way to fight back against it.
Hmm.
They're just kind of like, I like we just have to survive it. Like I don't
Yeah.
know what we're supposed to do. Like what are we supposed to do?
Yep.
And so you're just watching them get beat again and again and again. And finally, like the second half is more them like figuring out little ways to like tweak their problem
Yep.
and to like figure out ways to deal with it better.
Yeah.
Um, but
It's
yeah,
it's it's like the whole book is almost like every night it's trial and error because they
yes,
they learn
100%.
learn something is happening, and then every night that it happens, they something new happens, and then they do something new to try and see
Right.
what might happen, and they
Correct. Yeah.
continue that, and eventually more stuff happens.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it gets to the point where they've tried, and this isn't spoiling anything,
Yeah.
but later on in the book it gets to the point where they've tried so many things and you're just like, they're not gonna figure it out. Like
Hmm.
this, like
Like
this
there's no
main,
way that they can. This
yeah,
is this is above them, you
yeah.
know?
Oh
Yeah.
man, it's so good. I love this book so much.
Yep.
It's an extremely high recommend from me.
Oh,
And
totally.
dude,
Is
the audiobook was
awesome. It
so
is killer. The
good.
narrator does such a good job.
Oh my god, that was the
Yeah. I
creepiest
want to
thing.
give mad props to him for the voices that
Yeah.
he can do. Absolutely.
Yeah, who was the narrator?
Yeah, here I think I got it right here.
Because like he would do things like so like there's one, essentially one entity that is outside. However, he's the thing is like taking on a bunch of different forms. So it might be like a little kid or it might be
Bunch
a
of different,
woman.
well,
Like the voices of,
voices. Yeah, bunch of
yeah,
different voices.
yeah. And so, one second the narrator might be talking in like a really creepy, like little kid voice singing Do Re Mi Fa So or whatever the song
Mm-hmm.
was.
Yep.
God, that song was so creepy. And or no, it's was
It's
it this
different.
song?
No, it
Was it
wasn't.
like,
It was in a weird language that
oh,
that's
okay.
not something we heard, but it was same kids song vibe.
Yeah, it
No,
was
it's like a
like
little kid's rhyme that's in a different language. It just
right.
sounds like, yeah,
It reminded me of like that kids rhyme that's like a doe, a deer, a
yep,
da 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 da,
yep,
like that kind of thing. But it's just like, oh man, he does it in such a creepy way. And all of the different voice, like there was times where I was listening to the book and I'm like, please just don't do that one voice. Like, please just,
yeah,
I just don't want to hear that again. And oh man, it was so good. He did a
so good.
fantastic job. Do you have a name?
The narrator's name is J.S. Arquin.
Okay,
So props
awesome.
to you, man.
Yeah, I'm definitely gonna have to look up and see what other books he's
Yeah,
done because it was really, really phenomenal. And then yeah, like Gabe said, there was a lot of Native American stuff in this book. And I think it was done really well. And there was even like a note at the end of the book where the author's talking about how he like approached that and
yep,
how he wanted to portray Native American
yep.
people.
And he would make sure that it stayed true to their,
Right.
their beliefs and their stuff, which I thought was really cool. That it made me really happy to hear that because,
Same.
anybody can go and just talk about, make
Yeah.
up a Native American thing, right? Like it's,
Right.
but to take time to research and, actually do your homework on something that, spirit that they believe is real or could be or whatever,
Sure.
and make that happen, I thought was really cool.
Yeah, exactly. I really appreciated the work that he put into that. I have family that is Native American and just ever since like growing up and even now like I'm really really into
Yeah.
Native American stuff. I've always been really fascinated by it. And so I loved the Native American characters that we got.
Yes.
There was the guy that I'm forgetting names, but you got the guy that's like helping them initially. That's
Yep.
like from the tribe, and then his son Nathan.
Yep. Yeah,
Um,
I think his name's like Tay Way or Tay something,
oh yeah,
something like
T-Way,
that. T Way. T
T-Way,
Way. Yep.
T-Way. And then you have Angela, I think is her name, or Angelina
Yep.
or
Yep.
something.
Angela is like the more scholarly
Yes,
Native American girl that doesn't quite buy into it all that much.
right. Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. And she was fantastic. And I just loved I just loved learning about like
Yeah.
all of the just different ways that they all kind of interacted with each other and how they were like we don't necessarily have the answers. Like we're
Yeah.
not necessarily like these wise spiritual
For
people
sure.
that
Like
live
we
in the
just know from
wilderness.
stories that have been passed down that this is maybe what's happening, but we don't
Right.
know quite how to fix it.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly. And I love that aspect
Yep.
because it's like in any other book it would have been the Native American
Yeah, you
being
would have
like,
taken them, a
"Oh
shaman would
yeah,
have come
like
down and we'll fix it.
right,
But no.
exactly."
Yeah.
Yeah. I loved how real it was where it's like the T-Way was such a kind person
Yep.
and he's like, "Man, we will do the most we can
That's
to
right.
help
Anything
you,
we can do to help you, we will, but we
but
don't have the answers. Yeah.
exactly."
Yep.
Yeah. So, yeah, five stars all
Dude,
around from me,
absolutely.
honestly. Like I
Hands
think
down.
yeah, I think it's a really as perfect a book as you can get.
Yep.
It's fairly short. I think it's at like on
It's 8
regular
hours pretty much.
yeah,
Yeah, regular speed.
yeah. And yeah, it was just like quick and punchy and every scene felt like it mattered and
Yep.
it felt like something was happening even if in that scene like the characters were confused and not really solving anything. It felt like the story was progressing and
Yep.
you didn't feel like, oh, when are we going to get to the good
Yeah,
part?
there was no stalling at all in this
Yeah,
book at any point.
yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, definitely one of my favorites. You know that I believe a book is really good when I'm like I want to get the hardcover of
Yeah,
it.
that's right.
um
When Spencer pays money to get the hardcover, it's in
yeah.
his it's a top something.
Right. But also a part of me is like, I don't know if I want this on my shelf.
Yeah.
Like, I don't
Yeah.
know. I don't,
You have to buy like a little sage smudge stick and put it next
yeah,
to it and you can feel safe.
just lock it in like a
Yeah.
spell proof
Yeah.
box or
Yeah.
something.
Yep.
I'm just like, I don't know. I just feel like a little bit creepy about having that in my home.
Uh
Just like I wouldn't buy the movie The Ring on like VHS or anything and just have
Terrible
that in
idea.
my house.
Terrible
That's a
idea.
terrible idea.
Terrible idea. Not worth it at all. Yep.
Dude, could you imagine when The Ring came out? It was on VHS.
I
Like
know.
VHS were still being made at
People
the
were probably,
time.
dude, I remember one time watching The Ring,
Oh
the scared I've
God.
ever been in my life. First time I've ever seen it. And I was in my room. I had this old TV that also had like a DVD player built into it, right?
Hmm.
And I had it on DVD, or my parents did or whatever. It's like,
Yeah,
fuck it, I'm tough. I'm gonna watch this. And I watch it. And the very first
bad
scene
idea.
when the guy like, watches the ring happen and then it goes back to his face and he's all mangled. That
Yeah.
was the most intense feeling of
Oh.
fear and panic that I've ever felt in my life. I immediately started bawling, like panic
Oh, dude,
bawling, dude,
yeah.
like screaming out loud. My family ran in. What the fuck is going on? My mom sees the thing. She's like, fuck, dude, you're watching The Ring? That's a terrible idea. And I was like, I'm
Terrible
so
idea.
sorry. Yeah, it was awful. I still remember that feeling to this day, dude.
Have you seen the movie in its
Oh yeah,
entirety
no, yeah,
now?
I've
Okay.
seen all of them in their entirety, but man,
Okay.
I was probably 7, 8 years old,
Oh,
dude, just by
yikes.
myself in my
Yeah.
room.
Oh,
Oh, it
dude.
was awful. It was awful.
Yeah, I probably saw it when I was around like 9 or 10.
Yeah,
And yeah, I saw it with my mom, luckily, so I was able to be like,
for
ah,
sure.
like,
Hold me.
yeah.
Yeah,
But man, I did not take that movie well.
no,
I-
that shit is scary, dude.
Dude, that movie is fucking scary.
Yep.
And then my mom made me watch The Grudge because she was like, it was
Oh, it's
like,
even worse,
it
dude.
was only like a few
Yeah.
months later, and my mom was like, I really liked The Ring. Will you watch The Grudge with me? And I was like, fuck,
You're
okay.
like, sure, I guess. I'm
And
cool.
dude, the two scariest parts in that movie were like, oh, dude, oh, it still freaks me out.
Yeah.
She's like in the closet and she's like putting boxes up on the shelf. And there's like, I think there's like a little sliding
Mm,
attic thing. And she like sees that it's a little bit open. She's like, what's that about? She moves it and it's just like the
yeah.
face. Like, look, oh God,
Yep.
that scared the
Yeah,
fucking
dude.
shit out of me.
Yeah.
And then the other like really scary scene is where she's in bed and the like full blown monster is like crawling across the ceiling
Oh,
towards her.
fuck,
And I was
dude.
just like, fuck, 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 fuck. Like,
And like you hear
oh
the
God.
bones, like their arms are backwards and shit, and the bones
Yeah.
are
Oh
breaking as
my
they move.
God.
Dude, awful. Awful.
Ooh, yeah. Terrible time. I don't know.
You got my
Yeah.
heart pumping now, dude.
I know, I know. I'm sitting here in a completely dark room. I have like this light and that's
Yeah.
it.
I have to have all my lights on, otherwise I look like shit, so.
Yeah, I don't know why anyone like chooses to watch or like enjoy those movies. Like I'm just like, oh, that seems like torture to me.
Dude,
Just
it's,
like
you know what
no.
it is? It's the freaking adrenaline junkies, dude.
Yeah, that's
That's
true.
it.
That's true.
That's it.
All right. Let's go into
All right,
spoilers.
thank God, because I'm itching, dude.
You're itching for it.
Itching.
So we'll start with Splendor of Fear. I know we want to talk Stolen
Yeah, no,
Tongues.
that's
I,
cool.
I
That's
do
cool.
too, but let's I just want to comment on a couple things in Splendor of Fear.
Go for it.
And by the way, guys, just again, spoiler warning.
Yes, it's happening.
These,
Both these books are going to get the shit spoiled out of them, so just
yes,
be warned.
like full contact spoilers.
Yep.
Okay, so Splendor of Fear. I think the things that scared me the most were just anytime she was out in the woods and lost.
Yeah.
I thought that was like terrifying. I think the thing that really got me was when they find the house for the first
Mm-hmm.
time and they go inside and it's just like super dark and they're together and like looking around. And this is when things start, like things had already been kind of trippy,
Yeah.
but they go in there and they're together in the same room. She bends down and picks up a book and like starts reading it and is like cackling. And at the time, you as the reader, I don't know if you felt this way, but I as the reader, I was like, oh, there must be like because it doesn't describe her laughing as in like a maniacal sense, but you realize it is later.
Hmm.
It just says that she's like laughing at basically something funny in the book. And so you're like, oh, what's in this book?
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden her boyfriend shows up again. He's like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
And she's like, I was just laughing at this book. And he's like, you're standing here in the dark.
Yeah.
He's like the light lost battery and I couldn't find you for like an hour.
Yep.
And she's like, what are you talking about? I just picked up this book. He's like, I've been looking for you forever in the dark and I haven't been able to find you. And then I come in here and you're just laughing in the dark. She's like, no, I was reading this book. He's like, how? With
Yeah.
what light?
Yep.
And she's like, fuck. And then she had like dropped it on the ground.
Yeah.
And so then she's like, and then he's like, and what book? He's like, I don't see a book. She's like, it's right here. And she like starts trying to pick it up off the ground. And it's like a dead crow.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I was just like,
Yeah.
oh, it's getting
Dude.
real.
Yep.
Like,
It's
oh,
that warped perception stuff, dude.
oh, dude.
That stuff in that book was wicked. Isn't there a point in time too where like they're in the house and then all of a sudden she's back in like 1910?
Yeah. That
That's where I was like, damn, dude, because it like the transitions to that were so fucking creepy.
seamless. Yeah.
Yeah, and seamless, exactly. And it was just
Yeah.
like I was like, whoa, dude.
Yeah, she like and dude, it was such an interesting moment because like it shows like that moment where she's by the fireplace.
Yeah,
It's like she was so exhausted that in the middle of all of this, she was like, I'm just gonna lay here and sleep. It's like, really? With
that's
a witch? And
yeah,
like I'm not blaming her. I'm just saying like that's how much she had just fucking had it at
yep,
that point.
yep.
And she was like, the witch can take me. I don't care.
It's like my body
I'm
needs a fucking rest.
she's like, I need to lay down. And then when she like opens her eyes, there's like a lady that like comes by and is like, I forget what she was putting in the fire. There was something odd that she was putting in the fireplace.
Yeah, I don't
Hmm.
remember either. I said 1910, I meant 1810. I know it was 200 years or 200,
Oh,
give or
okay.
take.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, then there was a scene where there's multiple of these scenes, but I think it was right after the fireplace one where the witch is coming, I think from that room or from further down the hallway, and you just hear the fop, fop, fop of the bare feet.
Yeah,
Anytime that happened, dude, that tripped me out
yeah,
so much. Or like
yeah,
the first night where she goes to the bathroom, dude, this is probably where I started to get really scared.
yeah. That
Like,
that was that whole scene was creepy, dude.
dude, that
Yeah.
legitimately
And
creeped me out.
when she describes like those footsteps starting to run,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
that's that was
Oh my
spooky. Like,
god.
yeah, that was spooky as shit. Like all of a
Yeah.
sudden, like she sees this thing, she thinks it's a person, and it's like, what the fuck? And she starts to leave, and she's like, I can
Yeah.
hear the footsteps, and then it started sprinting, and I'm like, what
Yeah.
the fuck,
Oh
dude?
shoot.
Yeah. And then she turns
Oh.
around and there's nothing there. Like, holy shit.
Oh, dude, I would have loved it if she like turned around, there was nothing there, and then she turned back and it's
And
like
it was,
right
yeah,
there.
dude.
Oh
Yeah.
god, that'd be so
That's a
crazy.
horror movie tactic.
Yeah, for sure. Um, oh god, man,
Yeah.
that would be so great in a movie. Holy shit. That would legitimately scare the piss out of me
Oh,
if
me
that
too,
happened in a
dude.
movie.
Especially if it was a jump scare, dude.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, without a doubt. But yeah, I like that she went to the bathroom and like there was someone in the shower, she thought. That scene in the bathroom was really scary because she's got essentially what is the witch in the shower and she doesn't know it at the time. She thinks it's just
Another
another
guy out
camper.
camping, yeah. Or
Right.
girl, whatever.
Yeah. And she I forget exactly how it all gets instigated, but basically our main character or whatever her name was seems to believe that she has offended the person in the shower,
Hmm.
like
Well,
thinking that
yeah,
she
well
was
she says something, or I'm pretty sure she says some stuff that's like not offensive, but she assumes it is like, oh, I
right.
didn't, know there was anybody else in here, blah blah
Sorry.
blah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then as she leaves, she's like, fuck, did I piss this person off?
Right. And like as she like makes her way through the bathroom, she like hears the other lady like flop, flop,
Yep,
flop, like
following,
coming
yeah.
around the corners. And so our main character gets far enough away. What's her name?
Yeah,
I
look
gotta
it up. That's fine. I don't remember either, but it'd be nice to call her by her name.
Penny,
Penny. What's the boyfriend's name?
Jared.
Penny and
Penny and
Jared. Okay.
Jared.
All right.
So yeah, so Penny she like she starts like kind of moving faster and she turns around and she just sees like this shape just like come into the light of the doorway a little
Yeah.
bit. So she's still like a silhouette. So she's like, is that a person?
Yeah.
Like what are they
What else could it
doing?
be? Yeah.
Yeah. And she's like, okay. And imagine having to like and I felt this as soon as she woke up in the middle of the night. She's
Hmm.
like, I have to pee. I was like, fuck. Like going, like
Oh,
walking
dude,
all the way to the
totally.
bathroom.
No way.
Man,
And the
I would have,
fact, another thing that pissed me off, dude, she fucking like, tried to wake up Jared, and that asshole's like, fuck,
I know,
go by
fuck that guy.
yourself. I'm like,
And
geez,
then,
dude.
and then in the morning, he was like, oh, why didn't you wake me up? I would have
Yeah,
gone with you.
exactly.
I was like, God,
Exactly.
you
You're
need
like,
to
fuck you,
dump
dude.
this guy. Like,
Yeah.
what the fuck? Like, when he proposes at the end, like, why was she just like, no? Like, fuck
Yeah.
no.
Yeah.
Like, oh man. I couldn't stand him. But yeah, if I were her, I would have just opened that tent flap,
Oh, I would have pissed right
dropped my
there, dude.
pants, and
Totally. I
pissed
would
on
have
the
pissed
ground.
with my other hand in the tent. Been like,
Yeah,
I'm
like,
not leaving
oh,
this
for
space, dude.
right. I was
Yeah,
just like, fuck that,
absolutely.
dude. Yeah. But yeah, then she starts like moving a little bit quicker, and then I think it kind of like dawns on her that she's got a long way to go
Yeah.
until she gets to the campsite. And she's kind of like realizing this, and she's like, she said that it was a 5 minute run.
Which is
So
like, a 10, 12 minute walk, right? 15
right,
minute walk. Yeah.
right,
Which is a walk in the dark in the woods, dude.
right,
Yeah.
exactly. And so I'm just like, oh, like I felt so much for her in this
Yeah.
moment where I'm just like, oh my god. And then she hears the pop, pop, pop,
Dude.
pop, pop, pop.
Nope. No, thank you.
Oh my
No,
god,
thank you.
dude.
I'm good.
Ooh, yeah, that was the first thing to like really scare the shit out of
See, I
me.
don't know why cause like even thinking about it right now, like that frightens me a little bit.
Like now you're scared,
Now
yeah.
I'm scared. Yeah. Just, I don't know why I didn't feel that way when I was reading it, because that is fucking scary, dude.
Yeah, it's terrifying.
Yeah.
And so and that's kind of what I was looking for when I was looking for horror books. I'm like,
Mm,
I want something that is haunting and plays with your mind
yeah.
and is like in pursuit, like
Yep.
something that chases. And so I think I really got this, I really got that out of this book. The other part that was really terrifying was maybe it wasn't like terrifying, but it was like really intense,
Yeah.
was when her and Jared come out of the house and they realize that they're on the river and that they have to get
Yeah.
across it. And he's like, there's like this little like hill
Mm,
over here. He's like, I'm just gonna go over it and kind of see like where we're at and get the
yeah.
lay of the land. He goes over the other side of the hill and she's like waiting for him and waiting for him and waiting for him. And the next thing she knows, it's the witch that is running down the hill. And she's like, fuck, 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 fuck. And she jumps into the river. But then we switch perspectives for a second and we see that it's Jared. It's not the witch.
Yeah.
It's him who like ran back
Yep.
down the hill and he was like trying to stop her from jumping into the river. But the whatever's happening at the state park, whatever this witch is doing, she's able to play with the mind enough so that
Yep.
you don't know what's real.
Yeah.
And I think that was like the scariest thing for me, is that like at any given point she could be doing something and not know what's going to happen. And I thought it was going to end up with her putting a knife into the witch and then realizing that it
It
was
was
Jared.
Jared. Yeah.
Yeah. I think that would have been, I think that would have been a great moment. I definitely think that this book had too happy of an ending.
Mm,
I think that there should have been like some little twist at the end where it's like she like thinks that she goes home and like gets out of it and all this stuff. and then realizes that she's still in the state park, and
Yeah.
she's kind of like stuck in like this forever like time loop in whatever supernatural space is existing, and she's
Yeah.
just there forever. I think that would have been a great
Oh,
ending.
that's fucking awful, dude.
Yeah.
Oh
Yeah.
man.
Or just like or like she goes home with Jared and he
Yeah.
does like propose and everything, and then
And
like
then she realizes that it was the witch.
as she realizes the witch. Ah, dude, that'd be so
Yeah.
terrifying. That'd be so good.
Or like she never left the woods, like she had this
Right.
huge, yeah, fuck that,
Oh
dude.
man.
Yeah.
So good. Yeah, there could have been a lot of good endings. I definitely got to the end and I was like, why the fuck is she still marrying him? Like
Yeah.
I just thought like I thought he was a good character and he was good for the story and so was she, but I was just like, I just don't understand like why you would still marry him after all of this. Like after I don't know.
Yeah,
I'm
I just want to move like to Europe or something and forget
right.
about every part of my life, you
Yeah,
know?
just get like really far away. I
Yeah,
I
just
did I did like when they were running down the trail, like they finally find the path and they get to where the car should be,
and yep.
but it's not.
Yeah.
And they're just like, oh my God, like this fucking sucks. And I forget exactly what happened from there, but I remember them getting to the spot where it should be and the car just wasn't there, and they're
Yeah.
like, we're fucked.
Yep.
Um, I think maybe from there they go searching for her grave site or whatever, like where she was buried. Maybe that's the point where they like turn around and decide to go like find it.
Could be, yeah. Yeah, I'm the ending is a little hazy to me.
Yeah, because I remember at some point she convinces him that they need to find where
She
she was
was,
like
yeah.
unceremoniously laid to rest,
Mm-hmm.
like she wasn't given like a proper burial,
Yep.
and she gets like sucked into the blood that's like geysering up from the ground, and she gets like pulled down, and she's like she like sees the witch's life for what it is. And I thought it was interesting that the author um it didn't excuse the witch. Like it wasn't like, oh, now that you know this, like the witch is a good person.
Mm-hmm.
The witch was still a bad person
Yeah.
and doing bad things, but it just so happens that these other guys were also very cruel and
Corrupt and
evil,
yeah.
and like killed her very like
Yep.
unceremoniously.
Didn't
And
they like sewed her or like put spikes in her
yeah,
jaw
that's
and shit so
right.
that she couldn't invoke and stuff like that?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, they made it so she couldn't like open her mouth
Yeah.
without it being really painful. Um and so yeah, I think that was a good ending. That's like about how I expected it to end. I think there's a lot of witch stories that are kind of like, we got to lay the dead to rest and that'll stop the curse. I
Yeah.
feel like that's
Yep.
a pretty common trope
Totally.
in
Totally.
like fantasy and horror. And so I think that's about what I was expecting. Um, but it was everything in the middle of the book that really did it for me.
Yeah.
That really like had me engaged. So yeah, I don't know. Any other final thoughts about Splendor of Fear before we move on?
No, I think we covered all my points.
Okay, cool. Stolen Tongues, baby.
Oh man.
Spoilers for Stolen Tongues,
So
everybody.
excited right
Spoilers for
now.
Stolen
Super
Tongues.
spoiled. I'm gonna spoil the fuck out of this book, so just beware.
All right. I mean, yeah, I'm eager to talk about it too. Go
Yeah.
ahead and tell me what's on your mind.
Well, so there's nothing in particular on my mind. Like, I guess it's more of like, so this book to me was like a very, and I think this partially why I was so intrigued with it. Not only was it terrifying and riveting, but it was also like this very complex puzzle.
Yeah.
And so there was so much left, to the reader to figure out as the character figures out what's going on. The goal is
Right.
for you to kind of like, by the time the character gets there, you're like, oh my God, yes, that makes sense. Like,
Right.
I get what's going on here. And so when we first realized that there is, I can't remember the name of the Native American spirit. We'll just call it spirit.
It had a
What
really complicated name.
really complicated name, yeah. When we first realized that this is a spirit, and it does want something, And there's a reason why it is targeting. God, I fucking forgot her name.
Oh,
I want to say Emma, but I know it's not. It's like maybe with Felix is the guy's name.
Faye and Felix.
Faith.
Yeah.
Okay, her name's Faith. Yeah. All
No,
right. So,
Faye.
well, yeah.
Fay.
Are you sure her full name's not? I thought Faye was just the honorific that Felix calls her. No?
No.
Oh, all right. Faye. Faye is her name. When we first figure out that Faye is, actually being targeted, uh, obviously it makes sense. And I think what I was most interested in was the relation of why, because there's this huge like story that unfolds as we get further, mostly the second half. Um, but there's kind of this like scandal that her
Oh, okay.
parents,
Yes, dude, this was so good.
yeah. So
Oh,
her parents, her entire life have been hiding something from Faye that is the reason why she has the sleepwalking disorder and why this entity targets her. It's the entire
yeah.
reason. And so at first,
It all has to do with like the number
the
5,
number
because
5, yeah, and
yeah,
because when he's, yeah, man, there's so much, dude.
there's
Like,
so much.
it's so hard for me to like figure out where to start here.
So
I thought we were
essentially,
doing a deep dive on it because I was like, this book is deep diveable,
oh, it
like
it
easy.
most certainly is.
Yeah,
Yes, and we certainly can.
I would
The
love to.
yeah, the basically the creature when it met her when she was young,
Yep.
and it wasn't able to completely read her mind, but it knew that 5 was like a
Okay.
specific.
Yeah. Now I'm remembering. So yes,
Okay.
the creature, this creature feeds. It gets all of its information off of the dreams of people. And when Faith was 5 years old, and this is the big scandal, her mom was pregnant with what would be her younger brother, Charles. Yeah, Charles.
Yeah.
And Charles, he was stillborn. He passed
Right.
away. And when Faith heard that, she buried it so far down that she erased it. She forgot all about it, like her brain protected her from feeling pain of a loss, I guess.
Right.
And so this entity was so attracted to her because when it saw her, it could not read the dreams. There was this black void that was
Yeah.
connected to the number 5. And so its entire goal was figuring out why can't I need to get into this void
Right.
connected to the number 5. And so there's scenes like, dude, there's scenes where, you know, uh, Felix, has figured out what's going on and he's like talking through the door. He's like, "What? Stay the fuck away from my family. Like, I don't know what the number 5 means." And this
Hmm.
thing is like talking like, what is 5, dude? Oh my God, it's just crazy.
Oh, it's so good. And she's
Yeah.
like writing 5
Every
backwards on
window
the windows.
and the thing that Felix thought was like, her writing 5 was her letting him in,
Yeah.
right? Like every window, and then he eventually gets to, well, I think it's either the cabin or their house, but he like starts seeing 5, like he goes looking, and there's
Everywhere.
there's 5s everywhere. It's been
Yeah.
written everywhere in the house.
Yeah.
I'm like,
That
dang,
was
dude.
that was a fantastic scene.
Yeah.
That was the moment where, like, have you seen the movie The Number 23?
Oh yeah.
The moment where they start taking like the wallpaper off and
Yep.
they see 23 written all over the
Yep.
place. It was like that moment. I was just like, oh shit.
Yeah.
And I still don't quite understand why she was writing 5. I don't know if it was like to taunt the
No.
thing that was
Well,
outside, or
so from what I understand, so the number 5 is how old she was when that memory was repressed so hard that she could never remember it.
and it
And
was
so,
also that Charles would have been the 5th member of the
yep,
family.
5th member of the family, exactly. And so I think that because Faye talks about her trying to remember because this entity was trying to get her to remember. She's
Oh,
like,
okay.
I don't know what you want. Like, I don't know what's wrong with the number 5. So it's always in her mind.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah,
It was just kind of coming out through her dreams and
yep,
sleepwalking and stuff.
yep.
Um, man, yeah, there's so many good moments in this book. I think the scenes that creeped me out the most was where, like, she would be laying in bed and he would get up and look out the window, and he'd be like looking at the guy further out there,
Mhm.
and then he'd turn around, and there was this one scene that like literally scared the shit out of, not literally scared the shit out of me. It
He shit
it
himself. He really
yeah,
did.
shit myself. No, it figuratively
Yep.
scared the shit out of me
Yeah. They knew
where
that's what you meant.
he he like turns around, and she has like essentially, like, if her head was initially on the pillow, she's now turned like parallel to that, like 90 degrees, and her head is like hanging off the bed like this, like over the edge,
Yeah,
and
looking out the window.
she's just got like this giant like smile on her
Yeah.
face, and her eyes are just like rolling around in her head.
Yep.
Dude, that moment, it just,
That's like the Ring moment, dude.
oh my god,
Yeah.
it scared the piss out of me. Or like
Yep.
anytime he would come upstairs and she would just like be in a corner, or
Mhm.
like there was another moment
Face
where he like,
against the wall, like
yeah,
talking with a child's voice. She did
yeah,
that a
oh
lot,
my god,
like
dude.
singing that little tone, not even in just an adult's version of a child voice. She used like a child's voice.
Right, right.
Yeah.
And or like there was another moment where it was earlier on in the book, he came upstairs and she was like standing up on her tippy toes, wedged between the toilet and the bathtub, and just like standing there. I'm just like, oh my god, like that's
Mhm.
just it. I don't know why that specifically is scary, but there's something about someone being in a space where you would like never go. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like you would
Oh,
never,
totally. Yeah,
you
you'd
would,
never wedge yourself in between the toilet and the
right,
bathtub for any reason other than
like to
something.
clean it or something.
Well, not
Yeah,
even that, dude. Like
yeah,
you
like,
just
but like the
reach down
way,
there to, yeah,
right,
yeah.
yeah, the way she's just like standing there and
She
just
like
like,
contorted herself into this spot that was
oh
just
my god,
abnormal.
it's just like,
Yeah,
what the fuck? There's something so like primally scary about that.
yeah, yeah, dude. Totally. It's like looking at a bookcase and then all of a sudden the person's like on top of the bookcase upside down. Like that
Right,
doesn't happen. That
right,
never happens.
exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
Um, and yes, there was so many great moments like that where like poor Felix, there was so many times where like she was about to like throw herself down the stairs or something, and he had to like grab her and bring her back, or she would like lock herself in a room or whatever. And even during the day, like I felt so bad for him. I like, honestly, man, I like to think that I don't necessarily believe in like divorcing someone once you marry them, or at least that that should be like a very difficult decision to make. But I'm like, dude, I just like me, I'm like, I would have been out of there like
Yeah,
somewhere around halfway through the book. I would have been like, I cannot do this anymore. I
yeah.
cannot do this. I'm sorry. Like I
That's
just
fair.
can't.
Yeah, that's fair. I wouldn't judge nobody that thinks that for sure. Cause yeah, some of the shit that happens just gets really crazy. And of course, it's a book, right? Like it is fiction.
Yeah,
It's written, but yeah, to think about that in real terms where you're like,
yeah,
imagine if this was you and
yeah,
like almost every day he was waking up, just fucking terrified,
yeah,
exhausted. Like
yeah,
he didn't know what he was gonna do. And there's been days where I've woken up and thought, not even terrified or exhausted, but I've just thought like I'm in a corner, what am I gonna do? And those were like the lowest days of my
yeah,
life, dude.
yep.
Like, could you imagine tacking on a freaking ghost on top of that?
Yeah,
No way, bro. No way.
exactly.
Yeah.
And like she's not being super charitable about it. She's being like really like kind of antagonistic, like just let it go, just let it go. He's like, what do you mean fucking let it go?
Yeah.
Like you're like, you don't know what you're doing every single night. Like
Yeah.
this is
Yeah.
fucking
Yep.
not normal.
For sure. I think
And
that she does understand though. Maybe later, but she does understand what he's doing for her
yeah,
because she does some fucked up shit and he stays and she is like, I'm so sorry. And he's like, it's not
yeah,
you. We just have to fucking fix this problem and you'll be okay, you
yeah.
know?
But then there's other times where she just like gets irritated with him. Like she's
Yeah,
like,
but I
stop talking about it. It's like, dude, are you fucking kidding me?
well
Like,
yeah, I have to say that she's fucked up though, dude. She is
yeah,
fucked up.
sure.
She's not healthy. mentally
Right.
at all.
That's
Even
true.
even when she's coherent, she is fucked up.
Yeah.
Cause I couldn't even imagine the shit that happens there. But yeah, I,
Yeah.
I want to give her the benefit of the doubt.
Sure. Same. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. But yeah, then like her parents, oh my God, her
Oh
parents made
yeah.
me so mad,
Yeah,
dude.
fuck her parents, dude. Totally. And good for Felix, because when Felix knew that
I
fucking
love
her,
that he was standing up to
yes, yep.
them.
He's like, I know you're a fucking liar, and I need you to tell me what the fuck happened at the cabin and what's in the fucking basement, because this is
Yeah.
not normal, you know?
So, did we ever find out what was in the basement? Because I know that he saw like the padlocked thing, but
Yep.
I was hoping that by the end, I thought the end of the book was going to be him going into the basement and dealing with whatever's in there.
No, so yeah, so he didn't have so he never went back into the basement. He had a dream though of him going into the basement.
Oh,
Uh
did he? I must have
he
missed it.
did, yeah, and within that dream, it was the way he thought about it in his head, he's like, I don't ever you know, take a big deal on, messages in my dreams or whatever. I'm normally a very vivid dreamer, but this dream that I had, I knew was a warning. And
Huh.
the dream was him basically making his way to this basement, which is very vivid. And this basement was full of jars of hair and all sorts of stuff, which we don't know if it was in like reality, but this
Right.
basement was where that entity like
Live.
not so much lived. I think it's where like it was like born.
Oh, okay.
Kind of like where when Faye was little and there was like this, whatever happened on the mountain, blah blah blah. I think that's kind of where it like originated from, and they locked it up tight because they knew that.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Did you get the feeling at the end of the book when we find out about the brother? Did you get the feeling that this entity was the brother?
Mm-mm.
Okay, because that's kind of what I was wondering at the end, because it
Yeah.
said that like when he finally like actually talks to Faye, he's like, I walked 5,000 years across darkness to get to you. And I was like, I wonder what that means.
Yeah. So
Um,
so I think yeah, that's a good point. I was just gonna talk about that. I don't. Yeah. I've walked 1,000 years through darkness just to find you, is what he said.
yeah,
And I think, and what Angela tells him, because Angela's there when they're in the new condo, and this
yeah,
like actual battle is happening pretty much, right?
right. Yeah, yeah,
And she's like, this entity is obsessed. He is derangedly obsessed about the fact that he cannot find something out about you because he's never, this he's a spirit. He can figure anything out, blah blah blah, but he can't figure you out, and it drives him mad.
right.
Uh, and so I don't know what the 1,000 years thing about, but I definitely like felt that, I definitely felt that it was plausible that like this thing has been around and this
Yeah,
was the only time in its 1,000 years of darkness that it has ever felt any kind of, and even Angela's like, this might be a twisted sense of like love or like
right. Yeah,
craving or
that was
some weird
interesting.
stuff. Yeah.
Yeah,
And so, yeah, I don't know, dude. Fucking
yeah.
crazy though, man.
I kind of liked that we didn't get all of the answers.
Yeah,
I I
totally.
I, I kind of
Totally.
like that it was left up to like a mystery and it wasn't completely explained
Yep.
like necessarily. Like we know what it is, but we don't know like where it came from or like
Yeah.
why it does what it
Or we
does.
don't even know if it was actually fixed. We don't know if
Right.
the problem actually went away.
That's right. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's true.
yeah.
They destroyed the cabin though so that
They
nobody else
destroyed the
could.
cabin. Yep, exactly. But when the entity said that, like that's when Amy Faye
Mhm.
took her like final stand at the front door and was like, "No, I'm done running. Like this is
Yeah,
what you want to know. This is why the number 5 is important. I had a brother who
right.
was killed and I suppressed it, blah blah blah.
Right,
Or a brother who
right.
died."
Yeah.
And she like wards him off, and then it cuts to Felix. He's like, yeah, and the next 3 weeks are fine. There was only one night where she woke up and started talking to herself, and I was like, dude, like,
Yeah.
come on, we don't.
Yeah.
That's not clarification.
Right, right, right.
Yeah,
And then I also like how at the end he was like, we never did figure out what the dream catcher was or like who made
yeah,
it or like what it was for.
yep,
Um
And there's one
And
time where the monster screams, "Is that a dream catcher? Why do you have that?" I don't know if you remember that, but he does when he's outside the
no,
cabin. The monster screams, "Is that a dream catcher?" So I don't think it was the monster
interesting.
that made it.
Yeah, I got the vibe that it wasn't him
Yeah.
either.
Could have been Faye, I guess, because he
Yeah,
questions Faye. He's like, "Faye, did it was made out of your hair? Did you make that?" She's
right,
like, "I don't know. I don't think so."
right. Yeah, yeah, dude. Anytime she would get up in the middle of the night and just like go out, it's like, or like
Some
sometimes,
weird shit was gonna happen.
sometimes he would wake up and she was coming back in, and
Yeah.
it's like, well, where the fuck were you? Like,
Yeah.
what? Oh my god.
Yep.
There's
And there was also a scene too that I want to talk about too, is where Felix actually fucking fought this monster, like fist to fist,
yes. Oh,
fisticuffs,
dude,
dude.
that was so
Yeah, that
crazy.
was when he was alone at the cabin and Faye was staying with his two best friends.
Yeah.
Uh,
Oh, the story they told was really scary too,
yeah. Yo, absolutely, dude. Yeah,
where
that shit was
she's like
terrifying.
at their house and she's like lifting up photo frames and
Yep,
stuff and
looking
looking behind
behind
him.
it, and then his friend Colin, whatever his name was, he's like, I saw this thing outside, or I saw Faye outside. I chased her out there, and she started, or I don't know, but he saw some
He
weird
he
shit,
heard
and it's
he heard the kid's voice.
okay. And he went
Yeah,
out there,
yeah.
but then he saw something, like he
Yeah,
saw
he
the
did.
actual, yeah.
Yeah, he chased it.
Where was I? I was talking about the fight. Yeah, dude, the scenes like where he like finally gets fed up. It happens twice.
Yeah.
Finally gets fed up, and he's like, you know, fuck you. I don't care if you're gonna kill me. And he starts to like fight this thing, and he does, and he grabs the sage that was given to him by Nathan and
Yeah,
smashes it all over this monster's face, right? And it
that's
runs away.
right.
And then the
Yeah.
second time is when they're in the condo. And this is shortly after Faye's sister and the little baby leaves because Faye took it outside and did some crazy shit.
Yeah.
Uh,
That
and
was
he,
wild.
yeah, and he chases this thing all the way down the street into like this field.
Yeah.
And then he realizes like, fuck, there's no lights. Nobody's gonna hear me scream like I'm out in this field.
Right.
Uh, and the thing comes up to him and is wearing Nathan's face and fucking
Yes.
stands over him, and it's just like gloating and saying, I can't remember what he says, but he's like, you're, he's like, I'm him, motherfucker.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then there was the moment too where like he's at the cabin and he goes out to find the dream catcher and he like grabs the ring and he sees the thing like in its full form for the
Yep.
first time. I think
Yeah.
it's right before he fights it.
Mm-hmm. That's
And
yep.
he's like he's running and then the last like sentence of the chapter was and it was T-Way's face.
Yes.
Like,
Yeah.
oh my god. I loved all those moments where like the author did such a good job of knowing like such a wordsmith. Like he knew what to put right at the end of a chapter just to make it really creepy. Like there's
Yep.
a moment maybe like 3/4 of the way through the book, or maybe even like really close to the end, where he thinks that everything is finally solved. Like Faye hasn't had any incidents
Yep.
in a while. He thinks everything's good, and they're like laying in bed and like sweet talking each other. And then like the last sentence of the chapter is, and they're like talking, and she's like laid her head down on her pillow, and she like says something really nice to him, and then the last sentence of the chapter
Let's
is,
see. And then
and
she
then she
licks my
licked my
face.
face. I'm
Yep.
like, fuck,
Dude, I
dude. Like,
know.
oh
I
god.
know.
Oh
Yeah,
man.
dude.
Oh, dude, so creepy.
Just
And
unreal.
I love the moment too where they're out at the town, at like the nearby town or
Mm-hmm.
whatever, and he's like calling her like Noodle or whatever, like
Yeah.
something that's not her
Yep.
nickname. Like her nickname is like Monkey Toes,
Yep.
but like he calls her like Noodle to see if
Mm-hmm.
she'll like pay attention. And then he like grabs her ass out in public, and he's like, Faye would have slapped me in the face if I had ever grabbed her like that in
Yep.
public. And it's like, oh dude, just so many good moments like that. And I loved everything with the parents. Anytime the mom would show up and reveal like a little bit more information, or when like the dad told his story about how or I think she told the dad's story about how he woke up and saw all his like dead army buddies all around him in the middle of the night. Like
Yep.
he had his episode, and that was the last time they were at the cabin.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, just their whole thing. It's like, why the fuck would you think it's okay to send your daughter and her new husband out to
Dude,
that cabin?
for
Like,
real. Yeah.
oh
Stupid.
man,
And in the entire book, he's like, you fucking liars. Why would you do this to your own daughter? She's in danger. Like,
yeah,
you are fuckers for doing that, dude.
for real. And they're just like playing it off
They're
like
just like, oh, sorry,
it's
I
fine,
just needed, she didn't know. Oh, blah,
right?
blah, blah. It's like, all right, well, you almost killed your daughter, so you're parent of the year over here, dude.
Right, for real.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's just like, oh man, the whole thing with them, and I loved that he like stood up to them
Dude,
and
yeah.
was like,
Yeah, that phone call with, I forget her mom's name, but the phone call he has when he finally says, like, listen, you are a fucking liar. He says that you're a fucking liar, and I know you're
yeah,
hiding something. And she keeps, no, no, nothing, nothing. He's like, fucking shut up and tell me what was happening. And
yeah,
finally, Greg, who's the husband of whatever her name is, in the background says, just tell him. He needs to know.
yeah,
And then she's like, no, blah, blah, blah. And we hear Greg say, she was pregnant. And then that was
yeah,
kind of like the end of the phone call. She's like, I'll send you a box in the mail. I'll overnight it. I'll talk to you
yeah,
tomorrow.
right.
And then she shows up. I'm like, finally, dude, somebody's, you know,
Someone's
growing a
taking
pair,
some
dude.
action.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I feel like I liked the ending. I think so.
I
I'm
did.
trying. You read it significantly more recently than I did. What do you remember exactly what the last like couple chapters were like? Was it just them living happily?
Yes. Yeah. So the last chapters I think were when, after she sends the monster away, he talks to somebody else about Nathan on the
Okay.
phone. Nathan
Yeah.
has died. So I'm really sorry. But then yeah,
Oh, the
that's
ranger. He was
the
talking to the
ranger.
ranger.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. So he talks to the ranger. Ranger's like, man, I'm so sorry about Nathan, and he explains how he was, brutally murdered
Brutally
and buried
murdered.
upside down, just like the
Dude,
other people were.
real quick,
That's
that whole story about
crazy.
Nathan, he like went to the cabin and he's like sitting outside the door and he's
Hmm.
like bleeding out.
Yeah, trying to get
And
inside the door, and inside the door that was like food and shit, dude.
yeah, there's like
That thing was like
food.
living in there.
Yes,
Oh my
exactly.
God, bro. And Nathan was trying to get in so bad. There were like
Yeah,
knock marks and knife marks, and finally, and he like, dude, he took his face and his chest and ripped it off and put it
yeah.
on his own.
Oh
That's
my God.
terrible.
And then they found him like basically with his legs flayed upside down
Yep,
in the
and
snow.
buried alive. He was buried
Yeah,
alive with
right.
his
That's
legs up.
right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
calf soles flayed out and stuff.
Oh my God.
Yeah,
It's
crazy.
terrifying.
Yeah. And so right
Um,
after that phone call was just
him
uh
bulldozing the cabin.
yep, the bulldozing of the cabin, and then just him, like the last couple lines I think were like, and the next month was awesome. There was only one night when Faye
Right.
woke up talking to herself, and it was like that was it.
Yeah.
And I was like, what a great like send off, just to make you think that it's not quite over yet, you know?
Right. Yes.
It was flawless,
I
flawless.
I would have I do love that. I think the only thing that could have been better than that is just another, or maybe the only, and then she licked my face. Like I think
Oh, that would have
I
been good for
I
sure,
think
dude.
I think one more
Totally.
of those would have just been
Yeah.
like fuck, like
Yeah,
oh that would
I
have been
totally agree. I totally
oh.
agree. That would have been perfect for that too, dude. Totally.
um but yeah,
Yeah.
I think man, I don't even know what other scenes to like talk about other than I love T-Way so much.
Hmm.
I loved his character so
Him
much
and
because
Nathan too. Nathan was really cool.
Nathan was great, but I think T-Way was my favorite
Yeah.
because like Nathan was helpful, but T-Way was like he had no reason to help this guy,
Hmm.
and he even said like normally we don't like disclose um
Our tribe's information. Yeah.
yeah, he's like but
Our community is
because
what they called it.
right, and he's like but because I can see that this is going on with you guys, I'm
Yep.
gonna tell you as much as I can, as much as you need to
Hmm.
know. And I just loved him every time he would check in, like when Felix was out on his own at the
Yep.
cabin and
Yep.
T-Way was just like consistently checking in on
Yep.
him. And then like T-Way found him in the middle of the snow, like
Yeah.
Felix had
Yep. Yep.
sleepwalked.
Sleepwalk. Yeah. Sleepwalked?
And like
How the fuck do you say that?
I don't know. That's really weird. Um but
Weird, dude.
but yeah, then T-Way like got him back. He's like, okay,
Yeah.
it's okay. And
And
the
Felix even
the
says, like, you saved my life. Like, I would
yeah,
have died. Because
yeah,
that thing, I was this close to being in his territory.
right.
Yeah.
The scene that broke my heart a little bit is because I know I would be feeling this way,
Mhm.
is when that happened and they're standing in the cabin together and it's still kind of daylight. Felix is like, don't leave me. Like,
Yes.
please,
Yeah.
please don't leave me. Like, either stay here or like take me back with you. And like T-Way, like if I was T-Way, I would have been like, you're coming back with me.
Yeah.
But or I'm staying with you or
Yep.
something. But for whatever reason, he was like, I don't think that it'll do you much good coming back with me. It's gonna follow you wherever you go.
Yep.
And he's like, and I can't stay here.
Yeah, I think he even says like you're safer here, like stay indoors, don't go outside. Like
Yeah.
and then something about like your love with Faye. Like keep that
Yes.
is strong. Keep that
Right.
at the forefront of your mind and you will be able to withstand this.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that like broke my heart a little bit
Yeah.
because I know that if I was like Felix in that situation, I'd be like, please don't
Oh,
go. Like,
dude, yeah.
please do not
I'd
leave
be
me.
chasing him or some shit. I'd jump in the back of the truck.
Yeah.
But I'm a pussy, so who knows.
Man, I'd be right there with you. Man, and the other thing too is like the thing that sucked about this whole thing is like they have a truck, but like looking at the thing behind you, like that's pretty much how I imagined it, right? Like that's pretty much how I imagined
Oh
like what
yeah, no,
surrounded
no,
them.
dude. You could maybe make it up the driveway, but
Yeah.
you're bound to get stuck. Not only
Yeah.
that, but that truck's tires get slashed quickly after. So it's no good
Oh,
to
did
them
they get
anyways.
slashed? I
Oh
don't
yeah.
remember that.
Yeah, that
Oh,
the
dang.
beast slashes him, dude. Like
Okay,
shortly
yeah.
after that scene, I'm pretty sure.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, man, and I've been, I've been living in a state where it snows a lot,
Hmm.
and there's been a couple times where I've been snowed in to the point where it's like there is no leaving.
Yeah.
Like I am here and that's
Yep.
where I am and I'm not going anywhere. And him and Faye just being like stuck at the top of this mountain in this cabin and like really no way, like at that point you can't even risk it, like you can't even
No.
like even if you were like I'm gonna brave the snow or whatever, like it's just not doable in the
Not
first
doable.
place
And
at
then the
all.
consequences if you try and fail are dire.
Right, right.
Yeah.
So yeah, I loved that. I loved anytime like the marshal would come to the rescue. Like there was a couple
Yep.
times where like after the first night or after the first couple nights or something, you hear the snow plow in the morning and they're like
Yep.
coming up with like the cavalry.
Oh yeah, that was
It's just
cool,
like,
man.
let's
He
go.
was like, my friends are here no matter what. Like, thank God they came to save me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then at the end when the marshal shows up with all the other like
Yep.
police and whatnot, that was
Yeah.
great. And
Yeah, that's another thing too. When Nathan was murdered in the cabin, when the marshal was talking to Felix, he's like, this isn't an animal. Like, there's state police all over the mountain. It's shut down because this was a murderer, and we're hunting for him. And I
right.
was like, good fucking luck with that.
Good
You ain't gonna
luck.
catch shit, dude.
No. Oh man. Yeah. What a fantastic book.
Dude,
What a
yeah,
fantastic book for Halloween. I'm so
fantastic.
glad that like we kind of stumbled across this and it was just I'm like this is exactly what I wanted because I was looking for a haunting story because I'm
Mm,
I'm like I really want like ghosts in a house that are manipulating
for
stuff
sure.
and
Yeah.
scaring the people
People being
inside.
haunted.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I couldn't really find it.
Mm,
And I kept looking through a bunch of like different haunting stories and half the reviews are like, this isn't like actually scary. Like
Yeah.
it's a good story, but it's not scary. And I'm like, I want a scary,
Scary. Yeah.
haunting story. And I felt like as soon as I started this, I knew I liked it.
Mm,
And then as soon as I got to the point where the things started showing up,
yeah.
I was like,
Yeah. Yep.
oh, we need to read
We need
this.
to read this. Totally.
Yes.
Totally.
So I had a great time.
Yeah. I'm
I
so
love this
glad that you
book
told
so
me to
much.
read it, dude. Yeah. Like I said, it's the best book I've read in
Quite a
months,
while.
months and
Yeah,
months. Yeah, for
for
sure.
sure.
Yeah.
Nice. All right. Well, I guess those are kind of our final thoughts then,
Yeah.
huh? I can't think of any other scenes that I really, I
No,
mean, I
yeah,
loved all
I
of
got to
them,
talk
but
about all I really wanted to about this book,
yeah,
so I'm happy.
yeah.
Yeah.
I think that he did a fantastic job. I will say he's got one other book that I want to check out,
Yeah. Shit,
and
if it's the same author, I'll read it point
yeah,
blank, dude.
yep, and it's called In the Devil's Dreams,
Ooh.
by
If it's
Felix
another book
Blackwell.
about dreams, dude, I'm gonna shit
I know.
myself. I'm
Yeah,
gonna shit myself.
I read the description and it
Okay.
sounded like it was kind of similar.
What's it called? You said In the Devil's Dreams?
Yeah, I'll read the description here.
Okay, yeah, read it.
While visiting his mother at her secluded Waldport cabin, an English teacher is awoken in the night by screams. Something gigantic is heaving itself against the rickety front door, relentlessly pounding and scratching and shrieking his name. The hideous creature seems to know everything about the man and takes special interest in his wife's deteriorating health. Sounds really similar to Stolen Tongues.
Yeah.
Uh, On the other side of the world, a bleary eyed detective works late, desperate to avoid the recurring dream of his fiance's murder. But when a bloodied child stumbles into the Pine Rest Police Department and collapses, the detective finds himself facing his worst nightmare. In the Devil's Dreams is the story of three broken people and the boy who links them together. The lives and nightmares of the characters are elegantly interwoven, and the story is revealed through multiple points of view.
Sold.
Yeah.
I'll buy it right
So,
now. Sold.
it was actually no, yeah. So this came out after Stolen Tongues.
Dude, and it's the same amount of time. This is, bro, it's gotta be fire, dude.
Yeah,
That sounds so cool.
yeah,
Now oh yeah.
yeah.
Only 2 ratings on Audible? When did this come out?
It's brand new. It came out this year.
Okay.
Yeah.
This first guy says 2 stars. The title is just a psychotic episode. It's not really a scary story, it's just a psychotic episode with very little to no plot. It's incredibly boring. And then the second guy that commented said, struggle with this one. I really struggled to finish this one. It started out so good, but with the inclusion of each character after, just kind of went downhill from there. Some of the descriptions
Interesting.
of the scary creatures were definitely terrifying, but the overall story lacked for me.
Huh. Okay.
Weird. 2.5 out of 5. 2.0 out of 5. Oh well, I'd still
Interesting.
read it. I'll give it a
Yeah.
shot. I'll give it a
Yeah, give
shot.
it a shot.
Yeah.
Because like reviews, like we
No,
said at the
everybody's
beginning of
different,
this,
dude. Yeah,
everybody's
everybody's
different.
different. Totally.
Yeah.
Totally.
So, given how much I love Stolen Tongues, I'm more than willing to give him
Absolutely.
another
Yep.
shot. So, yeah, that's on Scribd. You can also get it on like Audible or whatever. But yeah, I don't know. I had a great time with both of these books. Kind of going into like our overall final thoughts.
Yep.
I think that this is probably the best spooky season reading that I've had. And I went through like even besides the books that I listed earlier that I actually read,
Mm,
like most of in some cases,
yeah.
there was like another 20 books literally that I would like just kind of look into and try to figure out if it was going to be good for us, or
Yep.
I'd listen to like a few minutes of it and see if it clicked. Um, and it is really, really, really hard to find something as good as Stolen Tongues or The Splendor of Fear.
Yeah.
And so I'm really glad that we did. I'm really
Yep.
glad that we got to experience like some actually scary horror
Totally.
books and kind of see like what the height of the genre can do. And I'm sure there's other ones out there too that we just haven't stumbled across, because I think both of these books are kind of like not mainstream. Like
Yeah.
I think that both of these books are kind of like hidden a little bit. Um, and so I would pass it over to our audience.
Yeah,
You
let
know,
us know, dude. If you got
yeah,
some good
if
scary books, send it our way.
yeah, and preferably modern. So far we haven't really been scared by anything that is
Yeah, like
like
medieval or
Stephen
anything.
King.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, like Stephen King or like Haunting of Hill House. It was just written too long ago to be like scary nowadays, I think. But more like modern horror that is actually like heart pounding and jump scare ish. I know jump scare is kind of like what you would you would connect that like with a movie or something, but I feel like it can kind of be done in
Oh,
books
no,
too.
it
I've
does, dude. It's
yeah,
the way when you're reading a sentence and halfway through the sentence your heart starts to
it's
pound.
like
That's a jump scare in a
yeah,
book. Yeah.
for sure.
Yep.
Yeah. So so yeah, if you guys have any ideas for other ones that you would like us to read, I'm legitimately starting to get into horror. And you know what's interesting is the goal for this episode was to find something that would scare us. But all the books that I was kind of looking into that didn't necessarily look like they would scare us, they still sounded
Yeah.
interesting. And so throughout the next year, I'm probably going to go back and read those books that just sounded cool,
Mm-hmm.
even if they're not necessarily scary. Because a lot of them are like mystery, thriller, psychological thriller,
Yep.
and I like a lot of those kind of movies. So I'm sure I would like those books as well. Um, but yeah, I feel like I've read so many horror books over the past 30 days. And I'm like, I'm ready to pick up like a fantasy book. I'm
Yep.
ready to pick up a sci-fi book.
Yep.
I've been so deep in the horror genre for so many days now.
Yeah,
And
you gotta take a break. Gotta
I'm
take a
like, I
break.
gotta take a break, and I'm ready to read Project Hail Mary, and there's a
There you go.
couple other like fantasy books that I'm gonna check out.
I think that
So
you'd really also like that uh
should I read it? The
uh
Color of Magic or whatever it's
I
called.
think you should. I think that you would like it a lot. I think that you'd have to okay, so the first book, the first like maybe third, I would say,
The
like
Choice of Magic.
Choice of Magic, like it really I can tell this. I've just finished the very first book. And from what I've gathered from the first book, like it is there and it does a great job and it kept me enthralled the whole time, but it's there to just set up what's going to happen
Right.
the rest of the series. So it's like
Okay.
very kind of basic starter stuff, but dude, I was really impressed and I very much got King Killer vibes.
Oh,
Um not, it's different of course,
sure.
but they're
Okay.
there and yeah, I think you'd like it. And if you're not
Eh,
going to read that, then you got to freaking finish Galaxy's Edge, dude. I'm tired of waiting
yeah,
for that shit.
I know. I know.
Seriously,
Yeah.
tired of it.
I'll check out Choice of Magic. Is it like it's not lit RPG, is it?
No, not at all. Not at
Oh,
all.
okay.
No, not whatsoever.
Okay.
Yeah. And
Cool.
it's on my uh I'm pretty sure I bought it on mine, and if I didn't, then I bought it on yours.
Yeah, it's on mine.
Okay, all right. Then
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, no, I'll check out the first couple chapters tonight.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
think you'll like it.
All right. Well, that is pretty much it to kind of wrap up my thoughts. I felt very fortunate to have been able to read the books that I have this month
Likewise.
for spooky season. And we have Holly Tinsley's new book coming out, the Kickstarter that she launched with her friends, where those are also it's like an anthology of horror stories. She says not all of them are like scary, but they all delve into what it means to be afraid. And so I'm really looking forward to that. That's called The Anatomy of Fear. We
Ooh,
should be yeah,
yeah, sounds cool.
yeah, it's really cool. And like each chapter, each author that put in their own story is a different body part. So like one is dealing like with eyes and one is dealing with
Whoa, really?
like teeth or whatever. But it's not
Wow.
I don't think it's body horror though. It has
No,
to
no,
do
no,
with like
for sure. But how skilled of it, like I feel
yeah,
like that's some skillful stuff. Say,
to,
all
to
right,
take
your
a
anthology,
prompt.
has to be about teeth,
Right.
and you make a horror story about, dude, that's
Yeah.
awesome. That's
Yeah.
awesome.
It's really cool. And they said that some of the stories are more like metaphorical
Yeah.
about it and some are more literal.
Still,
Um,
however you do it, that's cool.
yeah, I think that's super awesome. So I'm super excited to get that audiobook. Obviously, RJ Bailey is doing that audiobook
Yep.
as well. And so yeah, we'll be covering that pretty soon when it's released. I'm not entirely sure when it's going up, but it should be within I think by the end of October it should be released, or like maybe early November. Is that the month after October?
Yep. That is.
So yeah, it should be coming out pretty soon, and we'll definitely be reading that and having Holly and RJ on to talk about it. So
Sweet.
that'll be a ton of fun. But anyway, guys, yeah, that's gonna wrap us up for today. As we kind of come to a close here, I'll say that our next couple episodes are looking like we got some Dresden Files stuff coming up, where we're going to be looking at the short stories anthology Side Jobs. We're going to be going through those and having a discussion on that. That'll probably just be Gabe and I, and then for the next like Ghost Story and probably Cold Days, we'll have some guests back on. And then we have Warbreaker coming up with Bookborn, which is one of the books of Brandon Sanderson's Cosmere. That'll be a lot of fun. I'm excited to talk to her again. And then I think she's also potentially, hopefully, coming on again for our first Potter Watch episode,
Ooh.
where we'll be doing like we'll just be talking about Harry Potter in general and why we loved it before we get into the Sorcerer's Stone and go through the actual series. So yeah, that's kind of what's on the docket. We also have a Star Wars episode coming up. We just recorded with a friend of mine in real life, where we talked about Heir to the Empire, which is kind of the first, from what I understand. I'm not like a Star Wars enthusiast, but from what I understand, it's the first book in the Star Wars extended universe. And it was a ton of fun, and I really,
cool. Yeah.
really can't wait to read the sequel and do that too. But yeah, that's kind of what's coming up, guys. Thank you so much for hanging out with us while we chat about these books that we got to read for spooky season.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, we had a great time. I hope you guys did too. Of course, you can reach out to us on Twitter, Discord, and Patreon, which are all linked in the description below. We always appreciate you guys reaching out to us there, or just reaching out to us in the comments. We love talking to you guys down there, and it certainly drives the analytics up for us. So the more you do that, the better. Speaking of analytics, subscribing and liking helps the channel a whole lot as well. So if you enjoyed this content, we would very much appreciate if you would do that as well. But yeah, until next time.
Be careful when you dream.
There you go. Happy Halloween, everybody.
And a big shout out to our first Night Angel tier patron, Shad Zaman. Thank you so much, man.